This is Jim Summerville. I'm Sharon's sister, and today's date is July 31st, 2026. And this is my daughter, Laura Lee. Tell her who you are.
Oh, I'm Laura Lee, maiden name Summerville, last name, married name of Gayfield, and I currently live in Ohio.
Great. Anyway, that's the relationship I have with Jerry, being my brother-in-law. And we moved to Chillicothe in 1972 from Perry, Iowa, and Jerry had already started the election process for his Senate race, so we were able to be involved in that some for several months and helping campaign and do whatever needed to be done. And then I think it was day after Christmas, yeah. They loaded up their Oldsmobile with the U-Haul trailer, and the family went to Washington, D.C. So consequently, then, we were only together 3 or 4 months before they departed and went to Washington, D.C., and that, of course, made an interruption in my time that I could be with Sharon, Jerry, and the kids and all, but they did come back, of course, on different breaks and all. We had some chances to be with them. I was going to start out with the first time I knew about Jerry was in 1955. I was in the 7th grade, and that 7th grade was in the high school. There was a senior play, and in the senior play, there was this student guy. When he spoke, the whole auditorium was full of sound, and you could understand him, much more so than any of the other playcast people. So anyway, noted that, not thinking much more about it. Then anyway, probably then 1956, I received a phone call. I picked up the phone, and the guy on the other line asked to speak to Sharon, and I recognized, I think this is Jerry Litton's voice, assimilating back to his senior play, you know. So I got Sharon on the phone, and so there's where it all began from. Jerry did not go to college in '56. He took a year out because he was Missouri FFA president for the state of Missouri. Then he became national secretary for FFA. So he took that year off from college. He was also working a radio station here at KCHI in Chillicothe. And, of course, the farm, Lynn and Charlie farm, to help develop and work with Charlie on it. So anyway, the story goes about Sharon and Jerry is that Chillicothe was playing Brookfield basketball, and Jerry was doing radio announcing, so he went to Brookfield to do that. Well, Sharon was in the cheerleading squad, and so they obviously went also. And at the event, Charlie and Mildred were there, and Charlie saw Sharon. And then after that, he's telling Jerry about seeing her, and then somewhere they saw her. They said at an auto parts store in that area in Chillicothe, and Charlie pointed Sharon out to Jerry about it, and then we had the phone call coming in. Anyway, so they started dating, and they set up the radio station, something Platter. Anyway, the radio, they were mainly playing music. And it was just after school that they were back at Carlin Drugstore. And so they did that for about 2 or 3 months, on and off. That was really popular. A lot of kids from high school would stop by, and they would interview and talk to them, and they'd request a song, and Sharon would play the song for them. Did announcing like that, too. Then they also got into Symington. Jerry was a fan of Stuart Symington, and so they had formed Symington for Youth club, program, whatever. And Sharon and Jerry were in charge of it to help promote Stuart Symington. I think that was his bid for the White House back that time. Or it might have been Senate, because he was in the Senate when he retired. So anyway, those are some things that they got involved in there. Some things about Jerry. He reminded me of Will Rogers. And the assimilation to me and Will Rogers, at my age, I was very familiar with Will Rogers at that time. But Will Rogers' personal traits, his folksy wit, humor, and integrity were all big things about Will Rogers. And I thought Jerry had all those, and maybe some other things. Jerry had a lot of charisma about him. He was a person, when he walked into a room, you felt compelled to stand up. I don't know why, it's just something about the aura in his presence. And anyway, he did a lot of speaking. Even, I think, as a senior in high school, he was already giving commencement speeches for other schools. And he continued to do that for some years, all until he went to Washington, D.C. He was a very polished speaker, because the FFA and the positions he had took him down that path of speaking. He did have his speech teacher in Chillicothe High School was Samuel Taylor Dow, which also was my same speech instructor. It took for Jerry real well. Not so good for me, but anyway, we share that common interest. And the other thing too, kind of talk about that, Will Rogers, you'll find that Jerry, I have one of Jerry's book from Dale Carnegie. And I took the Dale Carnegie class myself, Eric and I did, back in the mid-1990s. But Jerry had mentioned things about criticizing, complaining. Well, Dale Carnegie's, the three things that most people do is to criticize, complain, and condemn. And those are the worst things you can do if you want that person to be your friend. So how to win friends and influence people is you have to monitor and be conscious of the 3 C's. And Jerry practiced that very well. He didn't ever, when he spoke, he never did eat before speaking. Even if there was a dinner or luncheon, he might eat afterwards. But the thought was that when you eat, the blood kind of goes down to your digestive system and kind of away from your brain. And when you're speaking, he wants to have full proper circulation to the brain, so he is smart and bright when he talks things about that. So that was something he did as a regular basis. He used very few notes. Most things he had he spoke to from the heart. He also had an index card file cabinet, one that you used to see at the libraries. His was probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 foot wide, stood about 4 foot tall, and all alphabetized. I looked at some of those cards personally, and he had a lot of detail handwritten on every card about everything he knew about that particular person. And that was how he kept track of people, plus we'd have a good memory and things like that. He and Sharon did that together at their office. One thing he did like too is he liked Mary Hartman TV show, and Charlie. That was one of his favorite shows. He did like jokes. He used jokes many times because it helps calm people down, make them at ease. It's always a good thing to have a jokes. I have Jerry's called Farmer's Joke book. It's really like a pamphlet. I was going to bring that so I could read some of the jokes, but unfortunately, I can't find it. I put the book somewhere that I knew I would never forget where it is. And I'm still looking. Someday I might find it tomorrow. I don't know. And something he had too in speaking was comedic timing. You'll see that a lot in the dialogue Litton tapes. Things will come up and he'll just take it and make a funny out of it. People laugh. He had that natural ability as well. The other thing too, Jerry had a lot of faith in God. In one of his dialogues, he mentioned that he could see Christianity was kind of wavering back in the 1950s. And so he addressed that issue fairly extensively in one of his videos. And then you see what's going on today, that this thing seems to be continuing to progress from what he saw then to now. Yeah, and the other thing Jerry would be, and Sharon would be amazed at, is all of the computer technology that we have nowadays. Jerry had a computer, and he kept all of the information about his livestock on a computer, and it was a punch card computer. They had files, drawers of files with punch cards in them, and they have little rectangular slots punched out of the card, and I guess you stick that in the computer, and they can read that into data some way or another to give you the information that was stored on that punch card. You'd be amazed about that. And our Dick Tracy watches that we wear nowadays, you know. Not to mention LED screens with no shadows and huge TVs, because they had all those monitors out there, and you look at the videos, you'll see the monitors are pretty primitive looking and small black and white glass TVs, monitors like we used back then. You want to talk now?
You're good.
And let Laura Lee talk to you some about her experience.
Oh. Well, I was only 6, but I do have my favorite picture. And so if you've seen this picture, it is in some of the published materials for the 50 Legacy Linton event. That's me. It was taken about, 3 weeks? 3 weeks before. So there's that. Most of actually what I know is just what I've heard from my parents growing up. I do know that it's a source of great pride in our family that nobody really understands. It's just very hard to share. I've been in Chillicothe for about a week now, and my classmates, their parents knew Jerry, or their grandparents, but I don't think they really know that I'm his niece. So that's kind of surprising to people. And I do have a few memories with Linda. She was the older of the two. I don't really remember Scott so much, although I do have my own Scott, my son Scott, kind of named after that. And then I had the thrill one day of, we have not lived in Chillicothe. I haven't lived in Chillicothe since I graduated from college. And after my Scott was born, and he was a few years old, we went to Mildred Litton's house one day, and we're over there for a few hours. And I think she was delighted and slightly confused that there was this little boy, blonde-haired boy named Scott in her living room again. So that was very sweet that I could do that. And then Charlie took a shine to me, more of a shine. I was around a little, I was around more. So that was nice to be able to make his day when I came running up the sidewalk in the driveway to their house next to the ranch.
Yeah, both Scotts had blonde hair, very shiny white, shiny golden colored hair and all. Yeah, when Sharon graduated in 1957, she went to Christian College, as it was called then, in Columbia. Of course, Jerry was then going to MU, and they hung out, did things together and all. There was one occasion had to deal with Alpha Gamma Rho was Jerry's fraternity, being agriculture, obviously, and Ed Turner, who became Jerry's main campaign manager in '76, and then also his chief of staff in Washington, D.C. But Ed was graduated in '58 and went to MU, was going through Rush Week, and went to three houses, three fraternities that were all agriculture based. And the second day or third day they came back, they'd go back to the last two or final ones that they wanted to attend or think about. And they went to Alpha Gamma Rho, and Jerry talked to him and said, you'd like to join Alpha Gamma Rho? And Ed said, well, I'm not sure yet about that. And Jerry said, hey, wait a minute, let's go get a Coke. Ed said, well, I'm not supposed to leave the campus when we're on Rush Week. Jerry said, it's okay, don't worry about it. So he hopped in his 1958 T-Bird, go over to Christian College. Sharon and a classmate of hers comes down, hops on the T-Bird, and they go off to get a Coke. Anyway, Sharon's talking about Alpha Gamma Rho House and how wonderful the Alpha Gamma Rho House. And Ed said there thinking, God, she's beautiful, you know. So anyway, they take the girls back to the Christian College, go back to the Alpha Gamma Rho House, and Jerry asked Ed, and Ed said, I'm signing up. I'm going to be at Alpha Gamma Rho. So that started a long-term relationship for them there. They both in campus activities through the years until they graduated and all. Now I might talk about Ed. Ed, when he graduated, went to work for a dairy company out of St. Joe. And Ed worked all of the 6 district counties. And he was a salesman, so he went to farmers throughout the county area. So Ed got transferred to Springfield, and then they were going to transfer him to Chillicothe. And Jerry went to Ed and asked him about being campaign manager. Well, you see what's going on. Ed knew a lot of farmers in the 6th district already, and Jerry found that a good springboard, good connections for helping him, because they're exactly the same as our 6th district. And so that was, and I'm going back to when I ran for Congress at this particular point in time. And so Ed and Lois moved to Washington, D.C. with Sharon and Jerry. And he became their office manager, well, chief of staff. He had, they were allowed 16 staff by the U.S. government for congressmen. And so Jerry actually went to Washington, D.C. a month or so before he actually was installed in office to interview and try to find staff, which was rather enduring, time-consuming, but most of the staff he did were people who wanted to go stay there in Washington, D.C. and worked in other offices, knew the ropes and their way around, and yet Jerry was a freshman, you know. And so anybody who has been there for a while is a valuable staff member to help you get things done, because they walked in the office, there was no furniture, no nothing. He had to go down to the, I don't know the name of the office, but all that stuff was there, and he just had to go in and pick out what he wanted. It's all provided by the government. And pick out his tables, chairs, telephones, anything and everything he needed for his office. He did bring along 2 people from Chillicothe. One was Christy Smith Wyatt. Christy's mom was Connie Smith, who was mayor of Chillicothe back in the 70s. And she was working at Carlin Drugstore, same drugstore where they had the radio show. And Lois was working at the drugstore at Lois Turner. And when Christy came there from high school, she was very impressed with, Lois was very impressed with Christy. So they looked about her and talked to her, and she agreed to go with them to be on Jerry's staff. She was their legislative committee person, and that was what she headed up. Her duties primarily start off every day was the mail. They got 3 deliveries a day, and they would get like stacks about 3 foot tall 3 times a day. It was Christy's responsibility to open each one of those, go through them, see what the people were wanting. A lot of them were speech requests. If it might be a local bridge club, one Jerry speak to them. She said, well, it's quite small, not too many people are going to be there, and then you have to look at Jerry's schedule, what's going on. So she would pull out the ones that were appropriate timing and do what needed to be done, and subjects that would do that. And then she would give Jerry, 2 or 3 or 4 of those, and then he would go through those. That went on every day. Many people worked many hours. It was not a 9-to-5 job. And Jerry, I'll tell you one thing about elections. To be a successful person in a public service job like Washington, D.C. or even state of Missouri, you have to be organized. You have to have people and have the ability and understanding from people that want you to succeed. And Jerry had those properties about him, in the charisma and all, and people worked their tails off for Jerry because they believed in him. And so if you're going to run a campaign, if you don't have that kind of staff and the mannerisms about yourself, you do not belong in a public office. If you would happen to be elected, you would be inundated. There is no way you can ever possibly keep up with the daily routine. So that's the neat thing about running for candidates. That's a real proving point, weeding the people out who are successful and those who aren't. In the morning, he would come in and he would always have a joke to tell the staff. And the deal was it a funny joke or not funny joke? So that was his test ground, his staff. If it was really good and funny, he would use it. If not, don't bother, Little things like that. And when they had staff lunching meetings, they called them staff luncheon meetings, but they never ate. The deal is, Jerry wanted full attention. No distractions from eating and all that stuff. Maybe they ate later on, I don't know, but he was very adamant about everybody having clear minds, following what's going on, interacting with him, and him interacting with them and all. And Sharon in Washington, D.C. started writing articles about a wife and children living in Washington, D.C. I don't know where all they were published. I have quite a few of them that my mother cut out of the Constitution Tribune and all. I think they might have gone to other district communication like St. Joe and Kansas City may have published those as well. And they're pretty touching that how she was as wife and raising kids and still being a congressman's wife and all the duties and things that they were involved with. Because back in, I think 1962, Linda was born, Linda Lorraine. They watched a movie called Lolita, and they thought about naming Linda, middle name Loretta, but they decided not to. It would be 3 L's. Linda, well, it turns out to be Linda Lorraine Litton, 3 L's like that. And Scott came along like 13 months later, and his middle name is Stewart, named after Stuart Symington. So that's how those kids came together. when they're back to Chillicothe, we get to see with them. And at the county fair one time, I guess it was in '76, I talked to Scott and Linda about coming and spending some time with me at my farm south of the airport. And he thought that'd be a great idea to come out and hang out on our farm for a while. Well, okay, the other thing on Sharon, she did work for the Missouri Bankers Association there in Columbia, but she ran for Miss Missouri. Of course, started out in Chillicothe in 1958. And one of her fellow contestants was Nancy Summerville, her cousin. And several of the girls, Marcia Harris was one of them, and Judy Mathis. I think there was like 6 girls trying out for Miss Missouri, Miss Chillicothe, and Sharon got it. And then they went to St. Louis for the Astro Miss Missouri competition, and she got first runner-up on that one. And I have her trophy and her dancing shoes. She did a modern dance and her tiara. So she was involved in a lot of things. She was very helpful with Jerry in his campaigning, and she did not ever work at the office in Washington, D.C., because probably nepotism might have been part of that. It's just think some more thing about Jerry in his jokes and stuff, but he also he worked many hours, so his sleep was probably, maybe if he got 3 to 5 hours a night was exceptional to norm, but he slept in the car a lot, but not while driving. He had a driver. They furnished drivers for them, and but he wanted to. That helped that out quite a bit. But Jerry, a lot of people talked about that. That he's been presidential material. Everybody knew that. His mannerisms, ways, his thoughts, and home. He was not an attorney. He was a farm boy, with good common sense and values, and so that would have been quite a change from your normal politician that you have running for offices like that. And Jerry did not accept any backing donations from public offices and big companies. Jerry ran his own campaign on his own money to the people, because those are the people he was willing to serve, and those are the people that vote and have the most for what needs to be done. And it worked very well. It was a pretty high-speed campaign for '76 because, like I say, Stuart Simonton was Senate and was going to resign at the end of the '76, I guess '77 term actually. No, '76, '77 term. And so Jerry decided to run for his position, and Simonton was from St. Louis, but his son James, or Jim Simonton, was also going to run in his state for his dad's position. And so St. Louis was a very contentious area to try to win many votes over from people, because those two Simontons were basically lived their whole life in service to that area. And so in Jerry structuring his campaign, he went after the people who were on the fence. That was his target, because those people in St. Louis were never going to change for Simonton. He had his dedicated followers, many in Missouri, and he didn't really have to address them particularly specifically, but those who were on the fence is where he wanted to bring them to his side of the fence. So that's how they directed their goal. I don't know how you geologically or do that, approach that, but he knows how to do that and everything back in those days. One thing it might have been the election day on August 3rd, possibly. I was talking to Sharon on the front porch of my mom and dad's home, and I asked her, "What do you think about you being the First Lady of the White House in the United States. And she looked at me kind of with an expression that kind of like let me think she never thought about that. Really, Sharon? You know? Anyway, everybody else knew about it and all. Of course, the thing too then, after the airplane crash, Charlie and Mildred formed a foundation that Laura Lee and I are part of it, with along about 10 other people, prominent people in Chillicothe. And our foundation was established to help promote the enthusiasm, love of agriculture and people. And so we've done that through, we built the Mildred, it's called now the Mildred Building. It was the first building on the campus out there. And then we helped build the Mervyn Jenkins Building. We were the second primary donor for it, as well as the Litton Agriculture Center, which we call the Votech Building. And so we were very involved with that. The football stadium, okay, the old football stadium, Jerry liked to play football. And we did a lot of remodeling and fixing that one up. And then when they built the new high school, we were the primary sponsors and funders of helping build the new Jerry Litton Stadium. And we have scholarships. We always give 2 scholarships out each year to high school graduating seniors from CHS. They started out, of course, many years ago, only being like $1,000 or $2,000. Now we're up to, I think, $5,000 and $10,000 or something like that in scholarships that we do. And we help fund other organizations around Chillicothe that are youth and agriculture related primarily. We have many requests from other folks, but at the same time, they don't fit into our particular mold in what we're willing to do with in the light of Jerry and who he appealed to and wanted to improve with. And the other thing too, I wanted to read you, Jerry had the 10 Commandments. It's called Jerry Litton's 10 Commandments. They happen to be on page 27 and 28 of his book, if you happen to have one. This is the original. There have been 3 publishings since then. 2023 was the last one we did. And they are available through the foundation for $50 each. But this is Jerry's 10 Commandments of Successful Living. These were his own ideas he put together after finalizing his life and the way he best accomplished goals. He thought it might be helpful to others and passed them on accordingly. Number 1 was, don't give up too easily. The next effort you make may be the one that will put you over the hump. Number 2, overcome your handicaps. Sit down and listen to your faults, and then work to overcome them. Those who do will be the people at the head of the table for life. 3, work hard. Success will never come in any other way. Anything worth having is worth working for. 4, cultivate your personality. Train yourself to think of others. Show a friendly interest in all you meet. Cultivate your personality like a field of corn, working it over until all the bad has been removed. Number 5, have initiative. When you get out of school, there won't be anyone to tell you everything to do. He says in parentheses, sometimes he substitutes another point here, which was the one of his own traits, and most of us cannot claim to have. He said, don't be critical of others. We're back to 3 C's, Dale Carnegie. Nothing is gained by pointing out the bad points of others. Every time you throw dirt on someone else, you lose ground. Farm boy, right? Have confidence in yourself, estimate your ability, and then raise it 10%. Don't be afraid Don't be afraid of responsibility. Set your goals high. Don't look for your ship to come in if you haven't sent it out. And it doesn't hurt to do a little work around the dock. Never be satisfied with yourself. The moment you stop setting new goals, you're standing still, and then you're apt to start sliding backwards. 8. Go through the world with open eyes. Take advantage of all opportunities that your home, community, and country offer you. And be sure to enjoy the view as you travel through. 9 is learn to cooperate with others. In order to get along with the world, you must first learn to get along with other people. The final one is prayer and closeness with God. It is the most important and essential of all. Prayer is not a last extremity, but a first necessity. A Christian can see more on his knees than a philosopher will ever see on his tiptoes. Good words to live by. And there is a book too that I have that's it's a commemorative for Jerry by the House of Congress in Washington, D.C. They had a special get together, and people got up to speak about Jerry and what he meant to them and the community and everything else they knew about Jerry. It's 7 or 8 pages as well of a lot of good information. And of course, Jerry, in one of his dialogue with Littons, I didn't really touch upon that, but the dialogue with Littons that was done in I think 75 and 76, those 2 years. They held them monthly. It was at the Hilton Hotel at that time at Kansas City International Airport, near to the highways there entering the airport. And they had 1,000 chairs. And they were, the first 2 times, Ed said they didn't fill it up. But by the 3rd one, it was almost full. By the 4th one, they had people standing. Yeah. We had a congressional club also that you became a member. I think there were 600 of us that belonged to the congressional club. And of course, it was open to them as well as open to the public to come in. And you had many famous speakers. Well, Jimmy Carter was there before he was doing his thing for election for being president, along with many other people. It was very well attended, televised over major networks in Kansas City and St. Joe. And it was a good time to meet the people, have conversations with them. There again, his comedic timing was awesome. And it was something that it'd be great if politicians would all do that. There was some people kind of thought about it, but I never heard it really take place in any other states or whatever, what Jerry put together. But that's just because Jerry was so much for the people and wanted them to know what's going on. He wanted their feedback right from them directly. And he wanted them to get his feedback directly and not necessarily through the news media. And the last program they had was July 13th, 1976, and his guest on that one was my sister Sharon. He introduced Charlie Mildred and my mom and dad. I think I was there, and I'm sure Laura Lee was there. This picture that she showed here would have been at that. If you know, Laura Lee has Jerry's brown scarf on with the white dots. That was part of it. He ran a brown color campaign on Senate. He ran a green one, everything when he ran for Congress. As green is good, I guess. But earth tones and things like that was more the mood in 76. what was popular in home and colors and styles and what you wear. So they went with the brown tones like that. And I might mention there were many of these videos, and he has other videos that were not dialogue. And if you go to YouTube, you can pull those up. There's like 40 YouTube videos of Jerry covering many subjects. His humor, he has special ones for humor. We had DVDs that we sold and gave to many schools over the United States and international as well, that wanted his DVDs of his speaking. So anyway, those have been available. There's a few left for mementos. There's a few plates still left, but we do have new books available. Anyway, that's kind of my best thing that I can tell you about Jerry and Sharon, and things about the personal things that you won't come up with out of the videos and other aspects of life that I witnessed myself personally, and Laura Lee. I appreciate her being with me to do that as well. I forgot to mention, on Sunday, August the 2nd, we are having a commemorative celebration, 50 years since the airplane crashed. That was actually on August 3rd, but August 2nd was selected because it was Sunday rather than Monday, where we could get more people attend. So we are all invited to come. This is the site of it here. It'll be held at the Litton Ag Center, which also, well, the fairgrounds, the fair we always had, the early fairgrounds I'm familiar with back in the 70s, were at Jerry Litton's farm, a ranch here on North Chillicothe. Then he went to the airport, and then when he built the Ag Center, now all the state fairs, county fairs are being held there. That's where this will be held on this coming Sunday. Hope they all can make it at all. I don't know if there'll be another one 50 years from now. Or 25 years, don't know. But anyway, it's been enjoyable talking to you all, and I hope brought some healing to you. This has been a healing time for me and my family. We've kind of put this in the back of our minds, you know. And I had a opportunity was asked to give this presentation to the Moberly Library about 6 months ago about Jerry and Sharon and the family, dealing with the 250th celebration of our United States of America, and I agreed to do that. And so that was 2 weeks ago on July 21st, I did that. And so getting into all the things, the books, boxes, and things I have of Sharon Jerry's, I put together to do a presentation and a video there with them. And I think a lot of people there were my age. It was only maybe 2 people below the age of 60. But I'm thinking they were there also for healing just as well as I was. It was a good time to think about, revelate about Sharon and Jerry and the family, and to kind of bring closure to what happened. Thank you.